Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined this morning by Jerry Hamilton. We may have CJ joining us here in a little bit. We'll see. If so, we'll add him right on in. But tell us where you're checking in from. Tell us what you're drinking this morning. And Jerry, the countdown is still on. 13 days, man. 13 days till spring football. Can you believe it?
13 days. I feel like the NFL Combine helped kind of bridge the gap a little bit, especially with Xavier Worthy setting a record, going Usain Bolt there in the 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. Adonai Mitchell, great day. Byron Murphy, T'Vondre Sweat, Christian Jones quietly that last day had a really good day as well. So I feel like the Combine bridged the gap, gets us closer to spring football. And look, the recruiting's heating up. Now, you're going to have visitors starting to pop up that are coming through Austin. Maybe it's 7-on-7 coming up, some things like such as that. We have Under Armour camps in Dallas and Houston the next 2 weekends in the state of Texas as well. So a lot of top prospects from Oklahoma, Texas, DFW, they'll converge on Dallas this weekend. For that camp on Sunday. But a number of new offers yesterday, and it's the position Texas fans care about the most, which we'll get into later. But, checking in. Thank you for telling us where you're checking in from. Trade Day, Deer Park. There you go, man. I'm down the road in Friendswood. I've seen a few. I saw Lindell this morning, a lot of other places. So, Titusville, Florida. Hey, new offers in your area, Mark, yesterday. Durant, Oklahoma, named for a Texas legend, obviously.
I like Donald Britts, attacked by a pair of nesting Blue Jays this morning. That's rough.
Yeah, that's a tough way to start the morning. Hopefully they didn't knock the coffee out of your hand. And tell us what coffee you're drinking as well. Somebody said morning from the mound. I don't know if that means you got shelled last night. But I'm not drinking coffee. I have Chick-fil-A, and I'm not out for a sponsorship. I'm just being honest. Steve Catt, Coke Zero and egg sandwich. That's not a bad little way to start the day.
There you go, Edmund Lee, coffee and breakfast tacos. So everybody chipping in here. Well, Jerry, as you said, recruiting heating up. A lot of new offers went out yesterday. All by the same coach. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, and 4 new defensive line offers yesterday, which is interesting. And 2 of them, Kenny Baker's after my heart now. He went and offered Jarquez Carter out of Newberry, Florida. And then shortly after that, he offered Derry Norris out of Port Orange, Spruce Creek. So you know what that means, Texas fans? I get to get in my car at the beef jerky and head to Sunshine State. I have 2 more stops to make this spring. I get to go to Jacksonville to see Jamie French. The receivers visited April 6th, down to Orlando, down into Tampa, IMG. I mean, it's going to be a fun trip with a lot of stops at Love's for that Robertson's beef jerky. But Derry Norris, very athletic, 6'3", 270-pounder. He's kind of been one of those Florida early ranked 3-stars. Out of Central Florida area. He's a 4-star if you watch the tape. And now his recruitment is starting to reflect that. Texas A&M, Miami, all recent offers here since the calendar turned to March. Then Jarquez Carter out of Newberry. Newberry, if you aren't familiar with Florida high school football, Newberry's put out a lot of Power 5 talent. And a lot of bigger guys that are very talented. So those are 2 great offers. And Blake, I don't know if you can bring up my tweet of the Stephon Shivers from Humboldt, Tennessee. He's going to be a guy that Texas fans like because he's 6'3", 355, and he takes handoffs in the backfield and rumbles and stumbles 60 yards for a touchdown. And he's a guy that he's fun to watch on tape, extremely powerful, large human. Texas offered him yesterday. Pretty much Georgia, Tennessee. Here he is. I mean, hey, look at that, T'Vondre Sweat. Hey, T'Vondre Sweat, you were 6'4", 265 in high school. This guy's 6'3", 355 running downhill from the tailback position. Look at that.
Lee.
Yes. Sark and Kenny Baker have the best recruiting pitch to him of all time. Just show him the tape of Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat catching touchdown passes. This is a very simple recruitment until you look at the recruitment. Georgia and Tennessee are out in front. So, it's going to be another gird up your loins recruiting battle there. But that is Stephon Shivers. Then the fourth offer at D-line was Chase Sims from in-state at Richmond Randall, the new school down southwest of Houston, as Missouri City, Sugar Land and Missouri City have grown so much that there's nowhere else to build other than Iowa Colony towards Pearland, and then going on down more into Richmond. Richmond just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So pretty soon Richmond's just going to connect to Victoria. But Chase Sims is 6'3", 290. Throws the shot put about 47, 48 feet. That's more of a glide. He doesn't spin. That's a glide. But powerful guy. A&M had offered him in January. He's got an official visit scheduled to the TCU June 7th through 9th. The big news is I spoke with Chase Sims last night. He's going to be in Austin April 6th, that big visit weekend. We'll lock it. We'll get to the other official visitors soon. I want to answer those questions. But Chase Sims will be in Austin April 6th with a bunch of other guys. That visitor list is growing fast.
Yes, it is. And as you broke the news this morning, a big-time official visitor. So do you want to go ahead and get into that?
Yeah, sure. Kalik Lockett out of Saxe High, same school that produced Devin Duvernay and a number of other talented guys. Kalik Lockett will officially visit Texas June 21st through 23rd. On TexasFootball.com broke that news this morning. I was at Saxe High last week. Lockett's also going to be April 6th on that April 6th visitors list in Austin. Somebody in the chat asked if he'll be in Austin for the spring game. I don't believe he will be, but I'll double check on it. I think he already has visits set then. Maybe A&M for their spring game. He attended A&M Junior Day. Father's from Southern California. Mom is from Louisiana, Mississippi, and she grew up in both of those states. So, but he really likes Texas. Obviously, the Texas offense, the scheme, Steve Sarkisian's scheme, the quarterback room. He's in contact with KJ Lacy. That's good. That's good news for a couple of reasons. KJ Lacy's recruiting for Texas, one, and then two, that look, he's connecting with the quarterback in the Texas recruiting class. But he's going to visit Penn State, Ohio State, all the head coaches, top receiver, wide receiver coaches. They came to Saxe in January. Steve Sarkisian, Chris Jackson, Tashard Choice. Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, Oregon staff, Penn State staff, A&M Mike Elko. Brian Kelly made the trip from LSU to Saxe with members of his offensive staff. LSU is going to be in the picture there. Ohio State's very much in the picture. Penn State's in the picture, I think maybe on the periphery, but he's visiting there in March. And I think Texas A&M is in it as well. We'll see what happens. But again, these guys are really – this official visitors list is coming together as well. Second receiver yesterday that On Texas Football reported that's making an official visit is Andrew Marsh from Katy Jordan in the Houston area. He'll make an official visit June 14th through 16th, same weekend that Kelshawn Johnson from Hitchcock is coming in. So that official visitors list continues to expand. The offers are going out. Kenny Baker now got his footing, there you go, Antonio Harris. Yes, it's Coach Randall at Randall High, who Randall High was named after the head coach's father, I believe, who was a longtime head coach. So that's how Richmond Randall, his name came about for that high school. That's very cool, Antoine. Hey, am I done glitching now? Are we better now or what?
I think you're good on my end. Yep. He says you're okay now, Jerry.
Okay.
But yes, just lots going on. And I actually want to go back to the Florida kids real quick, Jerry, because we have a question regarding that from Tyler. He says a lot of Tuesday offers from Baker. How many of those do you think Texas will land? But let me ask you this. How many do you think Texas has a good shot at being involved in that recruitment?
Yeah, so here's the way I look at this. So Kenny Baker was officially announced on January 30th, right? Once you're hired, you have to go through the compliance with the school, NCAA, to get released before you can go on the road and recruit. So there's a process there. So he was announced January 30th. He didn't get a chance to go out of state and go see these kids, make in-person evaluations, sit down, talk with these guys. He did a little bit in the Houston, Dallas area those last few days before the quiet period. So the question is, how many of these guys will Texas land? Way too early to know that. The key is you made the offer. Now you got to get the guys to campus. That's the whole key. And how many of these guys, you got to cast that national net. Okay. You got to find the 12, 15 guys you think are the best in the country outside of your Texas offers. Offer those guys, see who you can get to campus in March or April. Then go from there. Once you have a true feel on those guys, and before and then after that March, April visits, you have the spring evaluation period where you can go out and see these guys in person once again. And Kenny Baker, that'll be the first time he goes to the schools of these guys because he was in the NFL last year. So he's playing catch up with some other defensive line coaches and programs around the country. But the key is get how many of these guys you can get on campus this spring and set up the recruitment for June official visits. See who you have a realistic chance with, and then, get those guys back in June. And I always go back to the Brandon Baker recruitment. Brandon Baker, Texas was very much on the periphery, 5th, 6th on his list. Oregon was a huge leader this time a year ago for Brandon Baker. Ohio State was 2nd. Georgia was 3rd. He attends the Texas spring game. I believe that was April 15th last year, April 20th this year. He attends the Texas spring game. That visit goes very well with Kyle Flood, Steve Sarkisian. He comes back for a June official visit. That Oregon lead fades over time. It comes down to Texas and Ohio State realistically, and Texas wins out. So the next key is you offer, get them on campus for an unofficial visit, see who you feel like, okay, this is a good fit in our program. We have a realistic shot here. And then you bring those guys back in June. So that's kind of how this process is going to work. But what if from a Texas fan perspective, they're starting to cast that big, wide national net on the defensive line. They made a number of offers late in January, February 1st. Myron Charles from Port Charlotte, one of the top D tackles in the country. Josiah Sharma, one of the top D tackles in the country out of Folsom, California. A one-time Washington commitment who Alabama will be very much in on. Johnny Nansen has a connection in that recruitment to help Kenny Baker. So the offers have been made to some of these top guys, and now we'll see which guys come to campus from out of state in April.
All right, Jerry, before we move on and talk some more, we already got lots of questions, plenty of time to get your questions in. So definitely please do so. But I need to tell everybody out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. And Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm specializes in results for his clients, whether it's a tragic car wreck, an accident in the workplace, or any sort of serious catastrophic injury. Adam is who you want to call. So give Adam a call today, 512-280-0800, or reach him online at loweylawfirm.com for a free consultation. And remember, Adam focuses on results. And speaking of focusing on results, Jerry, the women's basketball program, they saw the fruit of their labor yesterday. And I'll just put it right here. Madison Booker, Big 12 Player of the Year. Of course, she shares that. I believe it's a co-player of the year. Is that correct?
I believe that is the case. But look, that is she is a very special talent in the women's game. We're not saying she's going to transcend women's basketball like Caitlin Clark seemingly has at Iowa, but she is a tremendous player, a future #1 type pick in the WNBA draft, a fantastic freshman year. She's had a year, maybe not on the level of Kevin Durant, but when you look at freshman basketball players, men's and women's, since 2000 at Texas, she may be second to Kevin Durant. I mean, as far as freshman type season, Texas women are going to be a 2 or 3 seed in the tournament after losing their TJ Ford, Rory Harmon to a knee injury. So, that's a huge, huge honor for Madison Booker. And she's a future top 3 pick in the WNBA draft.
Yeah.
She's
got freshman of the year. Gaston got 6th player of the year. They ranked in the awards yesterday. And then they had the all conference team with Moore and Booker. Moore being second team, Booker being first team, and then the all defensive team, Shea Hawley. So yeah, quite the honor yesterday for the women.
And that the Shea Hawley, that's got to mean so much. Obviously, her father played football at Texas. That she went to Texas. She's had the success that she's had there. It's got to mean so much to that family. There, the Miriam, that is so true. That is so true. That is a good look.
Oh man. All right. Well, we got a lot of questions here. And people are asking me to
Let's
comment
go.
on
Let's go.
people are. I'm getting a lot of baseball questions, guys. I didn't get to watch a game last night. I kind of kept up through Twitter a little bit, but my son was playing west of Abilene. It was a very long road trip, and so I didn't get to see it. But I think that was probably for the better there. And let's go over to basketball before we get to football, Jerry. We got a quick question from Easton. Any news on the suit?
I have not heard anything yet. I don't expect the news to be real positive there. I'll be honest, but I have not heard anything definite. I'm sure something will be coming out today or Thursday on that.
And then we'll do one other sport. UTX Horns. What about softball jumping OU for number one? First time in over a calendar year, OU softball hasn't been ranked number one.
That's crazy. And Blake, you had a great interview with Kat Osterman the other day on Texas football. If you haven't had a chance to tune in to that, Blake, tell people about that because that was awesome.
Yeah, so her and I sat down along with God, my mind just went blank. You put me on the spot there, Jerry. Reese Atwood,
yes. Reese Atwood
for the University of Texas, and there's no doubt Kat carried the interview because she knows way more about softball than I will ever know. But it was, it was cool getting to hear like a Texas legend getting to interview a current player. I kind of just sat in and asked a couple of softball questions, if you will, while she delivered the goods, but very informative. Like Jerry said, it's on the On Texas Football channel, so go check it out. And I mean, especially after the rank number one, you can learn a little bit more about them. And Reese gave some good insight onto the team as well. So, all right, well, let's get into it, Jerry. Lots of questions here.
Let's do it.
And let's start with recruiting. We talked recruiting in the beginning. So we'll start with recruiting. Horn 7 says the Florida defensive line offers tell us about the growth of Florida kids.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but I will say this. Texas knows they have to have a strong presence in the state of Florida headed to the SEC. And man, I love that because look, having done this job nationally for over a decade, I lived in Florida for a period of time during that as well. I just the talent in that state, because the setup is not like Texas or Ohio or in that metro Atlanta area. There's not the athletic period every day. There's not 9 full-time coaches on the staff at a lot of these public schools. These kids are so raw coming out in most spots. Not St. Thomas Aquinas. Throw them out the window, a Tampa Berkeley Prep, a Tampa Jesuit, a couple places like that. But the majority of your schools, your public schools, the kids are so raw coming out of Florida. Their upside, their ceiling is arguably the highest in the country of any state. And so when you get these big jumbo athletes that play on the defensive line, Jarquez Carter, Derry Norris, I mean, you could just dozens and dozens and dozens of guys over the years that have gone on to be NFL players. There's so much talent. And when you have a great strength and conditioning program, those guys take off, they accelerate, and they really reach pretty big heights coming out of the state of Florida in great strength and conditioning programs. I tell this story all the time. When I was ESPN Under Armour, I went to Monarch High School down in northern Broward County, and there were 3 wide receivers on the field. In the grass field, the grass was, 5 inches tall, or 4 inches tall. It was Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, and Kevin Ridley, all 3 NFL players, 2 first-rounders. And I'll never forget Calvin Ridley as a 19. He was a little older as a senior, 19-and-a-half-year-old senior, weighed about 158, 160 pounds. And that was when he left high school. We had him in the Under Armour All-America game. He was 182 pounds when he played his first game at Alabama. And that's how quickly these guys can just blow up in a great strength and conditioning program. I love that Texas is recruiting more and more in the Sunshine State. I think it's needed. I think if you're a developmental program that you have a lot of confidence in your ability to develop players, Florida is one hell of a state to recruit in.
All right. Our next question here comes from Living rent-free in UT. He says, how long until Texas gets on these SEC-type linemen earlier in the process?
Well, that'll be 2026. I mean, Texas went through that D-line coaching change, and it was tough timing for that because Kenny Baker, it was going to be an NFL hire. And so Kenny Baker had to wait till the end of the NFL season, right? And then he had to get through compliance. So it was late in the game for the coaching change. Not ideal timing, but it's fine if you're Texas. But I think you'll see much more aggressive. Like the spring evaluation period starts at the end of April, runs through May. What you'll see is Kenny Baker not only on the road seeing the top 25 guys that he hadn't seen in person before work out, but then seeing a lot of top 26s. You're going to see a much more aggressive approach in 2026 with Texas on the defensive line. Now that Kenny Baker's gotten comfortable in Austin, got his family moved, and everything's set up headed in that spring evaluation period. And offensive line, Texas is already early there. Again, the key is to get these kids on campus. You know, I talked to a family member of Josh Petty, 4-star offensive lineman out of the Atlanta area, Fellowship Christian there. He's going to be in town March 22nd. Same day, Brandon Brown, the Texas D-line commitment out of Ogali. Josh Petty, one of the top offensive line prospects in the country. He's never been on campus at Texas before. Sark Tashard Choice stopped by the school in January. Petty and his family have been talking with Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, Tashard Choice weekly. So he'll be on campus here coming up in March, and we'll see where things go from there. Official visit, I wouldn't rule it out with a talent like Josh Petty because it's an academic and football combination recruitment. Somebody's asking, is Fasusi a lock? Absolutely not. No, Fasusi's not a lock. That's a Texas OU battle. I think, not a lock at all. No, that's a battle. I think Texas and OU have been the top two for a long time. I think Texas likes where they sit. I think Oklahoma has confidence in that recruitment. Long way to go. March 6th, long way to go till July.
And Travis R. says, Jerry, who are some kids in the Lake Conroe area I should check out in the fall? Feel like I was spoiled last season between Lagway, I can't pronounce that last name, etc.
Yeah, so DJ Lagway would spoil you as a high school football fan in that area. Look, the running back at Lake Creek is a tremendous high school player. They have a quarterback that's a lower D1 kid as well. Former Texas A&M and NFL offensive lineman, the McKinneys, that one of their sons plays at Lake Creek as well. Some good talent coming through Lake Creek, but Byers, the running back, is very, very good. He's not maybe Texas offer guy, but he's going to be a lower Power 5 offer guy to some of those best G5s, but he is a compact, powerful guy at the high school level. Then if you went and watched, I don't know what Willis has got at quarterback coming up. That's going to be the question. But the freshman on that team last year, Jermaine Bishop, is about as good as you'll see as a playmaker in the high school level. Just a tremendous corner, slot receiver type guy, kick returner. Jermaine Bishop, big time talent. He'll be at Texas in April, I believe, unofficially. He's been to Texas before, but he's got all the offers: Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Florida, you name it. He's got it. And then we'll see. Oh, Dorian Brew, obviously at Conroe High, is on the top of the Texas defensive backboard. I expect him to either officially visit June 14th through 16th or the 21st through 23rd. So that's Dorian Brew, Conroe High. And Conroe High has a few guys. Now, I'm telling you, they have a defensive end edge kid that's one of those basketball guys that's starting to take off physically in football. Big, long arm, big hands guy. Quarterback's a Division I player. Running back's a Division I player. Conroe High, amazing for the people that aren't familiar with that, up to about 5,420 students in that high school. They just built one of the best facilities in the state of Texas for football, basketball combo, men's and women's, boys and girls, whatever you want to call it. But Conroe High has about 6, 7, 8 Division I players in their program.
All right, this next one comes from Antoine, and he says, Jerry, Huppun Katoa. Would Nansen help recruit him?
That's a great pronunciation, Blake, to start. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure he will, but look, Texas Kyle Flood, they've been on this one for a while now. So Texas offensive line probably speaks for itself on that. And CJ Vogel put out that Papa will be coming in for an unofficial visit in April. I expect John Turntine to as well from North Crowley. Those are 2026 offensive linemen that could pick up the phone and commit to Texas right now. They are that talented. They are that highly viewed by the Texas staff. And I'm here to tell you, John Turntine, he may be a top 5 kid in the country in the 26 class. We'll see how it shakes out nationally. But John Turntine's about as good as you'll see as an offensive line prospect.
All right. And then our next question here comes from, if I can find it, Juju Juice. And he says, where are all the DFW recruits this class, Jerry?
They're there, man. I think Houston's pretty strong in 25. But, look, we broke the news yesterday. Devin and Jordan Coleman from Cedar Hill, the 2 offensive linemen, they've scheduled Texas for June 21st through 23rd. There's a lot of talented large humans in Dallas in that class. We talked about Fasusi, the Coleman brothers. Obviously, there's triplets. There's Isaiah Coleman as well, who Texas Tech, UTSA have offered. But DeCorian Moore, Texas, is going to recruit through the whistle. Khalik Lockett's official visit, 21st through 23rd, will be on campus April 6th. The talent is in DFW like it always is. Texas will win their share of battles in DFW in 2025 and beyond. No question about it.
Then our next question comes from Kyle, and he says, Jerry, who are the must-have recruits?
I'm not sure there is a Colin Simmons for me in that class. I actually think Turntine is a guy in 2026 for me. And I think that'll be a battle royale type of recruitment. But if there is one in 2025, I don't want to put it on a receiver, DeCorian Moore, look, because the portal and things. I'm not sure there is one in 25. Because like if Fasusi happened to go to Oklahoma and you got Turntine in 26, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, so I'm not sure there is that Colin Simmons guy in 2025 in Texas for me. I will say outside of the state of Texas, I think holding on to Brandon Brown would be my guy. I've seen him in person. I don't care where he's ranked nationally. Brandon Brown to me is probably as close to a musket as there is in 25. I think he's just such a high end defensive line prospect. You don't see many guys like him. And again, Brandon Brown will officially visit Texas June 14th through 16th. USC the 21st through 23rd, Tennessee the 7th through 9th. And the key there with Brandon Brown is his unofficial visit to Texas is coming up March 22nd. That will be the first time he's visited Texas, even though he committed. First time he's met Kenny Baker. First time he's sat down in the Texas coaches' offices with the staff. Steve Sarkisian, Tashard Choice, and Jeff Banks went to see him in that Melbourne area before Kenny Baker could get out on the road. So Texas has sat down with Brandon Brown, but this visit will be so key because USC, Tennessee, Ohio State, Penn State, Florida, Miami, you name it. They're going to make it tough on Texas, but he would be the closest guy I've seen in 25.
Lots of defensive tackle questions, Jerry. So we'll start with Stephen Henderson's, who says, what's the number of defensive tackle takes in this year's class?
I think it'll be 3 to 4. I think 4 could end up being the number. But a lot of that's going to depend on – I don't think Texas is going to reach for anybody at that position in this class because the portal is friendly to Blue Bloods. So I think they're going to take 3 to 4 guys – that they feel like fit absolutely what they're looking for in the SEC.
I'm glad you mentioned the portal because that's actually my next question from R. McDonald 86. And he says, are we still looking at landing 2 portal defensive tackles?
One for sure. If the right 2 guys pop up, yes, not out of the question. I think it could be, you could see 3 guys added from the portal after the spring here. That would be 1 or 2 D tackles and a punter.
All right, and then so many good ones to choose from. We'll start with Black Wind. What should Texas recruiting priority be this year? Do you feel like it should be the defensive line?
It's a great question. I think defensive line is way up there. I think linebacker is way up there because you took one last year, Ty Anthony Smith, and it's a tremendous linebacker year in Texas. Riley Pettijohn, Elijah Barnes. I mean, so I think it's a tremendous linebacker year. I think Texas set it up that way. I think Texas said, all right, we signed 5 guys in 23. We're in 24. It's going to be one of these 2 guys in state, Ty Anthony Smith or Justin Williams. Justin Williams stuck with Georgia. A&M had the coaching change, opened that one up. Ty Anthony Smith flips. So Texas signed one linebacker in that class. So I think that sets up perfectly. They knew 25 was really strong at linebacker in Texas, even if you just start with the top two, Pettijohn and Elijah Barnes. But there's a lot of depth at that position. Anthony Williams obviously committed to Texas, but still others still recruiting him. You have Jonathan Cunningham. You have Javar Thomas at Nimitz. There's some longer levered athletes at that outside linebacker position that have popped up that Texas have offered. So I think D-line, I think linebacker, I think, corner DB every year, right? I think offensive tackle in 25 is key. You want to win out for Fasusi, but like I said, if not, you have Turntine in 26, but Jonte Newman at Bridgeland's an official visitor June 14th through 16th. I think it's a big offensive line class for Texas. While they signed 12 from 22 to 23, they took 3 last year. That was a tougher class for them to hit numbers because they had signed 12 before that. But this is the class where you can lean on in 25 and say, all right, Kelvin Banks is going pro. DJ Campbell and Cam Williams, if they have great years, who knows what happens with all these guys, right? So this is a class you can lean into after signing 3 last year. I expect it to be 4, probably 5 on the offensive line in the 25 class.
I'll do 1 or 2 more recruiting questions, then we'll switch gears for a little bit. But CW says, which of the 2026 quarterbacks is your preference if you had to pick?
We actually have some news on that. Family member Jared Curtis from the Nashville area hit me back late last night and said they are visiting on April 13th weekend. They fly in on the 12th. They'll be in Austin on the 13th, leave on the 14th, I believe. So there's Troy Hoon out of Mission Hills, California. I love him. I'm a big fan of this kid now. I think he's got really good functional pocket athleticism. He can Sark only recruits guys that make all the throws, so I don't even need to keep saying that. But very successful as a first-year starter. Love the basketball background. The mom's a basketball coach, has sister playing Division I basketball. I love that basketball guy. That he grew up, the basketball feet, that aspect of it. But I think Troy Hoon is a very talented guy. So Troy Hoon and Jared Curtis are the 2 offers in 26. I think Jared Curtis is a tougher recruitment, more of a Georgia lean. I think his sister goes to Tennessee. Then there's Will Griffin, who will be in April 13th as well. He's out of Tampa Jesuit. He's a rare guy that started on varsity as an 8th grader. And you can do that if your middle school campus and high school campus, if they're on the same campus, essentially. So he started on varsity in Southwest Florida as an 8th grader. He's got the biggest hand you'll ever see on a quarterback, 10.95 inches, I believe. I mean, like the unbelievable hand size on him. But I really like Troy Hoon. I think Jared Curtis is also very talented.
And let me ask you this, not that. Let me ask you this. Who do you feel like Texas has the best shot with at the current time?
I think Troy Hoon, for sure. I think Texas and LSU are the top 2 there right now. We'll see what happens. And I think, he's been on campus before a couple of times for camp last summer in June, then came back for the Kansas State game. Obviously, he works with Danny Hernandez, who Malik Murphy worked with in high school. So there's a long-standing connection with Steve Sarkisian there. And obviously, Sark being a SoCal guy, Troy Hoon being a SoCal guy. I see a lot of connections working on this recruitment.
All right, Jerry, it's your time to shine. It is time to tell folks out there.
Everybody ready? Everybody ready? Here we go. There it is. That's the Lawnmower 5.0. Top of the morning to y'all. This episode is brought to you by the St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers, Manscaped. This year, don't just chase rainbows. Make your own pot of gold and groom that little leprechaun with the leaders in the below-the-kilt care. Say goodbye to your clover forest. Nobody wants that. With Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0, and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the over 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off plus free shipping. Look, guys, ever since I used Manscaped, I can proudly say I found my pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Meet your new lucky charm for St. Patrick's Day, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The trimmer comes with 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, one for a classic trim, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. Look, trimming the hedges in your Irish garden isn't just for below the belt either. Complete your look with Manscaped's signature Beard Hedger Pro Kit plus Handyman electric face shaver. Take care of that little leprechaun, guys.
I love it. It's probably my favorite one yet. I gotta say, probably my favorite read so far. All right, like I said, we're gonna switch gears here for a little bit, and let's talk about the team and UT Boy here with the super chat. Family members, hook 'em for life. Thank you, UT Boy, for the super chat. We appreciate it as always. And he wants to know, Jonte, over under for 10 touchdowns.
Oh man, I'm going under because there's so many. So many targets on this team. There's so much talent, whether it be running back, tight end, wide receiver. I'm not sure we're going to see anybody put up the numbers of Xavier Worthy at Texas in this year. I just think there's so much speed. There's one ball to go around to more targets next year. Older guys, whether it's Cedric Baxter, Jaden Blue, Gunnar Helm in his final year at Texas, Nye Black coming in, Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo looks like a star in the making before the pads come on. We'll see what happens in 13 days when the pads come on. I think your numbers for Quinn may go up, but your numbers individually could go down a little bit.
You think he's going to be close to 10, like maybe at 8-ish, or would you say even lower than that?
Tough to call right now. I'll set the number at 5.5, and I'll let the chat go from there. Ryan Nelson said 5 to 7. He was thinking like I am. Stephen Henderson, does Quinn make a finalist for the Heisman? That's a great question. I'll say this. One, he's got to stay healthy all year.
Yes.
Two, if Texas wins at Michigan, it sets up the run.
While we're talking about Quinn, over under 4,000 passing yards for Quinn.
I always take the under, the running clock rule now on first downs. I think that makes it a little tougher. And Texas wants to close out games running the football. What is Sark? 53% run, 47% pass traditionally over his career, maybe 52-48. Somebody may have the exact number. I think you're going to see something similar. Look, you can't chuck it and dunk it in the SEC. Texas is going to have to run the football. They have to be balanced. So I don't see 4,000 yards. I could be wrong. If I'll say this, if Quinn passes for 4,000 yards, I mean, Texas fans are going to be celebrating a hell of a lot this season.
And now we'll move on to the backup quarterback. Horn 7 says, do you expect Sark to cut Arch loose in the spring game?
100% yes. Last year in the spring game, I kind of chuckled in the stands because I was like, okay, he doesn't want Arch to like go out and have like some bang up game. And then that's all people talk about. Right. So he wasn't really in position, I'll say, to go out and have a lot of success. And I think that was kind of by design. This year, hey, you got to get him ready. Quinn's QB1. Quinn hasn't had a fully healthy season yet. I think Arch is going to – this is why I think the spring is going to be so great. It's most anticipated spring in 2 decades at Texas. Quinn comes back. So much talent's coming back, coming off the win over Alabama, Big 12 championship on the way out the door by Brett Yormark, and the college football playoff. All this talent coming in, the NFL draft, 10 guys drafted. Just the build up, the hype going into this spring is pretty much like nothing I've been around at Texas for a long time. And then you're going to see a lot of Arch Manning. You got to get him ready to play. He's a year away from taking over. But unless Quinn has his first fully healthy season at Texas, you can pretty much bet on Arch starting a game or two. And I do think that Sarkisian will probably work him in this year to get him ready to go.
All right, Jerry, with that said, I'm going to welcome CJ Vogel in. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
Good.
Yes, we are here. All right. So with CJ, we're going to just jump right over to this question from King Me. When do freshmen get their numbers?
Soon. Most of the guys have already picked out their numbers so far. We're waiting for the rosters to update to get those numbers finalized right now. man, I'm excited to see it because then you get the roster updates, you get to see the updated heights and weights, and kind of make your own conclusions from there. But it should be in the next couple days, if not next Monday. The rosters will update, and man, I mean, this is one of my favorite days when the rosters update, not only in the spring but in the fall as well.
I think we some of the guys, I think it's starting to kind of get out with numbers for some of the freshmen. Trey Owens is wearing 15, right? Jarrett Gibson put on his IG live. He's wearing 9. Daniel Cruz is wearing 51. Some of those numbers of guys are out publicly right now. But to CJ's point, it's spring practice is here when Texas drops the updated roster next week.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have a super chat, fellas, from Kabir. Thank you, Kabir. He says, do y'all think X and AD's combine performance moved the needle our way for DeCorian Moore?
I don't think – look, I mean, LSU's going to have 2 receivers drafted in the first round. So I don't know about that necessarily. I just think, look, this is a battle royale that will go for a while. Both these schools will recruit DeCorian until the ink is dry, if you actually sign anything anymore. I guess we'll still use the term. But I think NIL is very impactful in this recruitment. And I don't think either. I don't think Texas performance. I don't think DeCorian sat there and said, yep, that's the reason I'm going to flip. I don't think that recruitment's going to work that way.
Jerry, do you think it might after this year if Texas is able to continue putting guys in the league? Who, if you look, pull up the crystal ball and look ahead at next year's draft, who at LSU and who at Texas might continue to be in that conversation for an early pick at the wide receiver spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas has a lot to sell in that regard, and we'll see with LSU. But with DeCorian, I think NIL is big in this recruitment. I think the one thing Texas has going for them in this recruitment, I'll say this, is grandmother went to Texas, a lot of family in Austin. His mom grew up in Austin. So they're going to be in Austin again. If they're not in Austin in April, I'll be surprised. I don't think the date's officially come out yet. But there's a lot of pressure applied in this recruitment. The one thing I've always said about DeCorian Moore's recruitment, that commitment, the way it went down, that's not the commitment, the last commitment you see of a 5-star prospect. That one wasn't built up like most of these 5-star prospects when they make their final decision.
All right, Horn 7 wants to know, who do y'all think will be Quinn's number 1 receiver this upcoming season?
Oh, UT boy, man's not going to like this. I think Isaiah Bond is going to be. It's tough to sound Silas Bolden because he's not going to be here this spring. So he's going to be a little bit behind building that rapport with Quinn. I think Isaiah Bond, but Matthew Golden, just don't sleep on Golden, because I really believe that Nye Black's going to, and Isaiah Bond and Bolden are going to be racing. Jonte Cook are going to be racing down the field, and Steve Sarkisian is going to be able to stretch the field vertically more so than he ever has been able to at Texas. And Matthew Golden's going to be the benefactor of that, guys. Yeah. And remember this about Golden. He had a chip on his shoulder coming out of high school. We had him ranked when I was part of national rankings on 3, top 150-ish in the country. Nobody else really had him ranked high. But there was great receivers in that class. He wasn't considered to be in the top tier of that. So what happened? He turned down TCU and Arkansas and Wisconsin, went to Houston, had that chip on his shoulder. The funny thing is, if you follow him on social media, he was the first receiver out of the portal to jump in, right?
Yeah.
Then Isaiah Bond jumped in and got a lot of attention, and Golden's like, hey, don't forget about me. So you see that chip is firmly planted on his shoulder. I think that's a guy who, until he's drafted in the NFL, is going to say, I have something to prove. And I think that puts him in a great spot on this team.
Well,
yes, Matthew Golden and Jaden Blue were teammates in high school, Corey J. Funny story about that is I went out to Klein Kane to see Jaden Blue junior year, and I knew who Matthew Golden was. But I walked away saying, Matthew Golden, no offense, Jaden Blue, Matthew Golden was the best football player on that team. Matthew Golden played receiver. He punted. He was a return guy. He did it all. He did it all for that team. They put a lot on his plate, and he was able to handle it in a competitive way. Matthew Golden's a hell of a football player, guys.
Okay, you mentioned Golden, so let's talk about him a little bit more. Tyler Rollo says Golden could Golden be our next Jordan Whittington this season?
Hey, that would be a great fill-in. It truly would be for Texas right now, because you talk about the speed, big playability for a lot of these guys. Going back to the average distance of target for Matthew Golden at Houston, it was not very far down the field. It was about 8.5 yards, 3 or 4 yards shorter than the other guys Texas has added to their wide receiving room right now. So if you talk about that safety blanket, that insurance guy that Quinn Ewers can rely on third downs, kind of in that underneath realm, as we've talked about, that would be Matthew Golden. Plus, he's kind of got a bigger frame, not necessarily a small, sleek, slender guy that we've seen Texas add that has used his speed tremendously to get open. That fits that Jordan Whittington role as well. So if he does find a way into that slot, I think it would be big for Texas, because he does have a lot of production. He does have a lot of experience. If you can continue to have that guy that Quinn Ewers can rely on underneath, it would be tremendous for the offense.
All right, and then Tyler also wants to know over under 35 catches for Aaron Butler.
In 2 years, I'll take the over. This year, I've got the way under. There's just too much experience around. I think Aaron Butler's turned some heads in Austin. Bobby Burton, hope he's enjoying the Virginia Slims Open there in Palm Springs this week. But I don't know what the tennis tournament's called these days. But look, Aaron Butler, Bobby said, had the look of the second best receiver in the freshman class through workouts. That's saying something. That means you're right behind Ryan Wingo, ahead of Dubose and Parker Livingstone. I think Aaron Butler was a tremendous late signing by Texas. I think tremendous. Look, anybody who's talented enough to be committed to USC as a corner early in your high school career, flip the Deion Sanders as a wide receiver / corner at Colorado. I worked with that. People can think what they want about Deion. Deion knows players. I worked with him for a decade at the Under Armour All-America game, helped run Prime 21 camp for him. Deion knows talent. Deion was a great Hall of Fame talent. He knows what he's looking at. And then Steve Sarkisian signs him. That's a very talented football player. His stop, start, change of direction, accelerate, decelerate, get back to top end speed. He's not 40 fast necessarily like you're going to see Isaiah Bond. Xavier Worthy now is in a different category. A.D. Mitchell. I'm not saying he's not, but coming out of high school, I'm not sure you would sit there and say 4.4 guy. But what you would say is makes a lot of people miss, has great change of direction, accelerate, decel, top end speed, gets there quick. And now with a college strength and conditioning program that's proven to develop players, Aaron Butler's got a chance. These guys are going to have their patience tested in year one of these receivers. Those who have patience and understand process, there's a lot of talent in that room. They have a chance to ascend.
Yep.
Captain Americano asks, who do we need to step up during the spring, and who do you think actually steps up?
Ooh, well, Texas needs Sadir Mitchell to stand up and stand out. That'll be one that Texas, I think we can all agree on in that interior defensive line, whether it be Jere Bledsoe, Aaron Bryant, who else fills out that rotation on the interior D line for Texas this year. It's got to be a big point of emphasis this spring. I do think we'll see a little bit more from Jere Bledsoe this year. It is sounding encouraging behind the scenes, whether what he's done in the weight room, what he's done physically, getting up to speed to the SEC that we've talked about. That's got to be big for me. Also, the linebacking room. Who stands up next to Anthony Hill and really takes control of that next spot? You know, it has to be a guy that you can use not only in the passing game, but in the run game as well, and vice versa. It's got to be that bridge must be gapped, whether Texas, is comfortable with David Benda or Kendrick Blackshear or Leon Galafau, Darian Gillette, whoever it is, that guy has to be able to be there to complement Anthony Hill and stay on the field for 3 downs.
We've had a lot of Alfred Collins answers to that question. So my take on Alfred is, I've always been high on his ability, and I remain high on his ability. You hope a guy like that maximizes it one day. We've heard in the spring, taking steps, big spring, here he comes. I don't even care in the spring. I want to see it in the game. I want to see it week 2 in Michigan. I don't even care about the reports prior to that. This is a season thing for Alfred Collins. This is about consistency this season, becoming the guy that look, Alfred Collins coming out of high school was one of those guys you looked at and said, that guy could be a high NFL draft pick. Now's his time. This is his last year to do it. to get that. He'll be a combine invite. He would have been this year if he came out, and he'll do very well in the combine. But it's going to be consistency on the field. So spring practice, I know here. I'll make the prediction. We're going to hear great things. I don't care. I want to see it on Saturdays, every week in, week out.
All right. This next one here is going to be from Name Roberts. He says, who has the most rushing yards if Blue and Baxter get the same amount of carries?
That's tough. I would actually go with Baxter on that, because that means you're running Jaden Blue a lot between the tackles in the SEC. Okay. I like what I think makes those guys a good duo is you have your three backs on this team. Bobby Burton reported Savion Red's 235 pounds, by the way. I can't. That's one thing in the spring I want to see. I want to see what Savion Red looks like at 235. I can't imagine. I mean, are his calves this big? Like, how's a guy that's 5'9" run weigh 235 like that? That's going to be impressive to see. But Texas has really the fits between the tackles, inside zone scheme runners. And that includes Jarrett Gibson, who people are saying some good things behind the scenes on. Christian Clark fits that. But what I think makes Blue so good is the number 2 back in this scenario, where you can use him to his strengths. You let those other guys run the inside zone, have that downhill run game, and you bring in Blue and you change things up. So that's what I think makes those two guys good together. I think if you said, okay, Jaden Blue, you're going to have 17 carries and we're going to run inside zone, I think that's square peg round hole. I don't think he's going to maximize his ability that way. I think he's going to maximize his ability as the number 2 back. Doesn't mean he doesn't have the most carries in a game, but the number 2 back that Sark uses and puts him in positions to be successful.
Yeah, I've got to see Jarrett Gibson and Savion Red standing side by side, Jerry, because those guys are huge when you see them comparatively. I mean, that's a fun running back room for the future this year and whenever. I mean, those two guys are huge.
So, Mike D, that's a good question. What about primetime? How do you think they'll do in the Big 12? Well, does he have the best quarterback in the Big 12? I mean, I don't know how they're going to do. Arizona was my pick to win the Big 12 before the coaching change. I thought they were moving into Big 12 with a team ready to roll. I think if Colorado goes 7-5, they've had a really good year in year 2.
Agreed. Okay, it's time for me to tell everybody out there about Adam Lowy. And Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm specializes in results for his clients, whether it's a tragic car wreck, an accident in the workplace, or any sort of serious catastrophic injury. Adam is who you want to call. Give him a call today at 512-280-0800 or reach him online at loweylawfirm.com for a free consultation. And remember, Adam focuses on results. And we want to thank Adam for sponsoring each and every Wednesday right here on Coffee and Football. Tyler wants to know over under 12 interceptions next year for our defense.
I like the over. I do. And I say that because you have a lot of experience in that room now. You have a lot of guys that have been around the ball. And it's not necessarily just the experience, but it's the improvement in athleticism as well. Being able to range across the field to get to deep posts, to deep go routes, everything along the lines of that. And also you have Anthony Hill in the middle who can get, shined in 7-on-7 play when it comes to reading defenses. He's in a second year now. He should be able to understand route concepts, where he's supposed to be in the passing game as well. I like a pick per game a lot in the preseason there, because you're also playing three G5 games now opposed to 2. So I think you're going to load up on those and then skate by in the SEC. I think you'll see about 14-15.
Hey, Blake, bring up Texas schedule real quick, and I'm going to tell you I'm going over.
Yeah, if you're talking about the new coaches and the new quarterbacks, Jerry.
That's what I'm talking about. How many first-year starting quarterbacks, new starting quarterbacks is Texas going to play next year? I mean, that's the thing I look at. So Michigan, new quarterback week 2. Great time to play Michigan. UTSA, new quarterback. ULM, I don't know who he is, but he's going to get picked off. Mississippi State will be Blake Shapen from Baylor, new quarterback, new system. Oklahoma, first-year starting quarterback, will bypass Georgia. Maybe he'll get a tip ball interception. Vanderbilt, I think 3 guys transferred out for them. So probably going to be new starting quarterback. Florida will have Graham Mertz, but I mean, I don't know if Billy Napier will be on the flight by then. We'll have to see. Arkansas, new starting quarterback. Kentucky, new starting quarterback. Connor Weigman, will he be healthy at the end of the year? I don't know. But that's a favorable schedule to pick off 12.5 passes next year. And that's also a favorable schedule to get back to the college football playoff, by the way.
Definitely.
Without a doubt. All right. Tyler also wants to know, do you think Texas will have the number 1 offense in the SEC next year? Say the only Georgia.
I'm split on this.
Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss.
I'm split on this because you see those offenses that are designed to go as fast as possible, to score as many points as possible. So they won't be the best offenses, but they'll put up more points, you know? Sarkisian likes having complementary attack here where he uses his run game to offset his pass game, you know, and vice versa. You saw what Oklahoma did last year, where it was we need to throw the ball vertically as quickly as possible, as far as possible, and as often as possible to get as many points on the board. There are offenses like that, not as many in the SEC as we saw in the Big 12, but there are still offenses like that will go up and try to do that as many times as they can during a game. So I'm a bit skeptical on that, but if you talk about the most complete offenses right now, again, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Texas, I don't think you can look at those guys right now and cherry pick a weakness on either of them.
Good call by Ryan Nelson. If Nico has a really good year, Tennessee with Josh Heupel will be right there. Ole Miss, to me, it all comes down to 3 new offensive linemen. Diego Pounds, the 2 guys from Washington. If they have a pretty clean acclimation process and play well up front for Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, 3rd-year starting quarterback. They added the transfer receiver from South Carolina, Wells. They have some really good talent on offense, even though Judkins left. They had a transfer running back come in. But if that offensive line plays well for Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin's in-game play calling and a 3rd-year starting quarterback, Ole Miss is going to be pretty good on offense.
Yeah.
And living rent-free on Nico, I think that's what the thing to watch. I think Nico's a very good athlete. Ball looks great coming out of his hand. He's going to be game planned against for the first time in his life coming up. He looked good in their bowl game, but this will be a year that people are going to game plan for him, and he's going to have adversity will test him. And so how does that season go for him? I think he's a very good talent, and we'll see how that goes over the course of the season for him.
Yeah, that debate of Nico versus Jackson Arnold, who has the better season, will be fun closer to the year after spring concludes. But again, for Texas, a lot of guys that they can pick off with the inexperience in the system, inexperience at the coaching staff as well. It'll be fun.
Hey, and Lee Chadwell, he thinks Ole Miss could be a sleeper. I actually pick Ole Miss to go to the playoff this year. So I don't know. I don't know. I think this is going to be actually the best football team they've had. And I know that Hugh Freeze had some really good teams until Laramie Tunsil's dad blew that up on draft night. They actually beat Alabama 2 years in a row. I actually think this may be the best team Ole Miss has had this year in a while.
Plus 175 to make the playoff. I'm taking them.
Corey J wants to know, what's the word on Galani McDonald? Will he be a contributor in the 2024 season?
Yeah, Bobby Burton reported on that before he began vacation that Galani McDonald has had a very good offseason. He's working at safety. Texas really likes what they're seeing headed into spring football. That would be huge because when Galani came out of high school, obviously his father was a linebacker at Waco High and TCU, right? And I think people that looked at Galani and naturally said, oh, he'll end up at linebacker. But that frame wasn't a lock to be a linebacker. Now, if he was a Gary Patterson recruit in the early 2000s at TCU in the WAC, then or whatever conference he was in, then Mountain West and moving over to the Big 12, he would have been a linebacker. In the SEC, he's one of the top 5 all-around athletes in the program, in my opinion. He can play safety, and he's got that length, he's got that range, he's got that size that Texas really likes at the safety position. I had a huge spring for him because Xavier Filsaime coming in. I think Jordan Johnson Rebel is going to start off as a nickel/safety, very instinctive player. But with Makuba coming in, Derek Williams year 2, Michael Taft returning, if Galani McDonald, if you hear a lot of really good things about him coming out of the spring, that's a great sign for Texas next year.
Okay, I'm looking for that super chat, by the way, RJ. Mike D says, instead of kickers or punters, are there any football players that play soccer? Christian Jones comes to mind. I was just thinking about footwork and endurance.
I know. So, look, I know this. At the high school level, coaches go to the soccer field to find a kicker 70% of the time, right? So those guys do have tremendous feet. I'll just say again, Bobby talked to Christian Jones's agent, and that's one of the things the NFL likes about Christian Jones is he's not even close to maximizing where he's going to be as a football player. He's still a young football player, grew up playing soccer. But I mean, look, again, I'll bring up a name that's so much fun in the chats is Micah Hudson. He was a goalie for his soccer team. Receiver with really good hands and good feet, goalie. How many times have you heard about a 5-star receiver, ranked 5-star receiver? I think it was 4-star receiver that played goalie in soccer. Not very often. So those guys tend to have tremendous feet.
We got a super chat here from RJ. And he says, Jerry, we start getting practice reports in 2 weeks. What happens if we hear Arch is making a run at Quinn's job and lights up the spring game?
Quinn's quarterback 1. He's going to be the starter. This is his team this year. The Manning family is in their own lane, and the rest of the world is in a lane trying to force the Mannings into their lane. I just don't think that's going to happen. Quinn's going to be the starter. I think Quinn will have a very good year, and I think Arch will be a hell of a player after that.
And while we're on the subject of the spring game, Trey said, and Jerry, you've been preaching this for a while now. Surely this is the most anticipated spring game ever for UT football, with media plus fans rightfully magnifying the excitement.
And I'll add to that, Chris Del Conte is going to deliver. It's going to be an amazing experience at the spring game, weather permitting, right? So you got that piece with what Del Conte's done with Bevo Boulevard and the football program in general. So it's going to be a huge bang-up event. There is no doubt about it. I think it is the most anticipated spring football in 20 years for Texas, as it should be, right? I mean, I can't tell you how excited I am for the fans, the Texas fans, the venues you get to go to. I mean, just think about it. Year 1 in the SEC, Georgia and Florida. I don't care where Florida's at as a program now. If you're my age, what did you watch Florida do? You watch Tebow win national championships. Heck, you watch Billy Donovan win 2 in basketball at a football school, right?
Forgot about that.
So, I mean, Florida is one of the top athletic programs in the country. They just have had a tough time hiring the right coach, right? And things working out. When Texas went through their decade, looks like Florida's a little bit behind them right now, obviously. But just think about the venues you have coming up. I mean, A&M game's back at Arkansas. I mean, these are unbelievable venues to go to as a fan, and it's going to be great to have Georgia fans coming into Austin for that game during the season. I couldn't be more excited for the Texas fan base. This move to the SEC, I mean, look, I hate to take shots, but the Big 12 was so boring for me. I mean, it was just, and not that I don't appreciate the coaching in the league. I really appreciate the coaching in the league. Some great coaches in this league. But for a fan's perspective, boring. Recruiting, boring. NFL draft, boring. How much do y'all want me to go on? Things are changing.
All right, guys, we started the show with recruiting. We're going to end the show with recruiting, so we'll do a few questions there. Horn7 says, how do the Horns expand into Mississippi and Georgia for recruiting in the future?
Mississippi's tough. Look, I mean, you might get a guy out of there every so often. I don't think that's the place you want to get in a lot of battles, because I'll tell you, going into Mississippi, doing this job is so much fun. When Chris Jones came out of Houston County in Mississippi there, Bobby and I told this story. Bobby got a call. We were at 24/7 Sports at the time. Bobby got a call, and it was like, hey, there's a guy down there who's really good. And so I literally 2 days later went to Houston County, Mississippi to see Chris Jones. And I say all that we ranked him number 2 in the country. But I say all that to say this, that he played for Mississippi State staff, essentially. Those guys all went to Mississippi State or Mississippi State fans. They literally hid the kid from other colleges. We don't have anybody here. He's all right. That's what I love about Mississippi, is state of Mississippi in recruiting. Ole Miss guys, Mississippi State guys, they hide their guys. I mean, Alabama, their staff might have got pulled over going across the state line for going 57 and a 50. I mean, you just don't know, right? And so that's what makes that state fun. But I say all that to say this: those are some real tough battles to get in. I think Georgia, because of how much talent there is in Metro Atlanta and in South Georgia, some of the best D linemen in the country in 2025 are in Savannah, right? There's so much talent in South. Roquan Smith, Southwest Georgia guy. Maybe a Hall of Fame player one day, we'll see. But there's so much talent in Georgia. I love getting into Georgia, and everybody thinks Metro Atlanta, and it takes feet on the ground. It takes resources. It takes time, but I love recruiting the entire state of Georgia more so than Mississippi. There's way too many Power 5 players to go around in that state for Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Living rent free in UT says, who are the 2 running back takes between Stewart, Davison, and Simon?
I think you got it right on the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
You want to elaborate?
a Kylan Deere out of Quitman, Mississippi. Speaking of getting in a battle, Tashard Choice went to see a Kylan Deere. I think Ole Miss is in a pretty good spot there. But Georgia, everybody's chasing. Wouldn't shock me if he doesn't end up on campus this spring, see where things go. He would be the third guy I'm really looking at right now. And James Simon, very good player, by the way.
Yeah. Jordan Davison has 2 unofficials locked in for April as well, Alabama and Ohio State right now. So it'll be important to see if Texas gets him back to campus. Obviously, we expect him in for an official visit, but if you're able to double up with the spring visit and again back in the summer, that would be big for Texas's spot in the pecking order with Jordan Davison there.
And Marcus Harris at Mater Dei is coming in on June 21st through 23rd. We'll see when Jordan Davison makes his official visit. But that would be a pretty good guess, Texas fans. And yes, Kalen Deere is the real deal. He is tremendous running back. And then there's the Osamane Kumra, I can't pronounce his name, out of South Georgia, who is a stud in the 25 class as well.
Jerry, I know you touched on this at the beginning of the show, but we've had quite a few people join since then, so we're going to revisit this. Thoughts on predictions made on Fasusi, Pettijohn, and Barnes to Texas, and are you close to making a prediction on any of those 3?
No, I think the some of the industry companies have a day where they want people to make picks. It's just reality. So the timing of that's probably not probably makes sense if you understand that.
And then Justin wants to know, did the running back from Texas City ever sign anywhere? Watched him put the ball on the ground a few times versus ball high. Not sure that helped along with his size.
Yeah, I think maybe JUCO, but I'll have to double check on that.
And Roe wants to know, are you guys aware of any 26 recruits from San Antonio?
It's a good question. I need some time to think about that one.
Not off the top of my head, no.
I'll find something on that.
Yeah, we'll revisit that one before we get off of here. But let's take this question here from Tyler, and he says, do you guys think that KJ Lacy will get his time to start for Texas, or does he end up decommitting and transferring somewhere else? What's the latest on KJ as far as visits, all that good stuff? So
KJ Lacy, I spoke with somebody in his circle earlier this week. Official visit June 21st through 23rd. He'll be on campus April 6th. He'll be on campus for the spring game April 20th. I mentioned earlier in the show, he is helping the recruitment of a guy like KJ Lockett, right? He's in contact with some of those receivers. So things are very solid with Texas right now. Ole Miss, Auburn continue to make runs. Another teammate of his, Antonio Coleman, just flipped from Auburn back to Alabama. We'll see if Alabama makes a real run there. I'm not convinced that's the scheme fit for Kalen DeBoer. We'll see. We'll see who they go really target in that class. But Ole Miss, Auburn, they continue to make a run there. And KJ Lacy, I think his commitment's pretty strong right now. Look, and the reality is, if Arch Manning can sit 2 years and then take over at Texas, that's a great spot to be if you're Sark and trusting the process for guys moving forward.
Yeah, William Jones, you're calling about Alamo Heights having a young tight end. He will be a senior next year. Bennett Johnson is the name. 6'7" guy, basketball background as well, can move very well. Visited Texas twice in the summer, once for a camp and once for a game early on. Also visited Texas Tech. So hopefully to get some eyes on him this spring, because I do think he's a guy that could blow up and become a Power 5 guy. Maybe even move into tackle, which is where their coaching staff says that there are some college coaches starting to look at him a little bit differently with that ability to move inside as well.
And then running back Jonathan Hatton at Cibolo Steel, committed to Oklahoma.
Yep.
He's probably he'll be the top ranked guy right now this spring out of San Antonio area in 26.
All right, guys, we got time for just one or two more questions. Naaman Roberts says, Jelani Watkins out of Atascocita High School just ran a 10-200 meters this past Friday. He used to play running back at Klein Forest. So is Texas interested?
He signed with LSU. He's a wide receiver, slot wide receiver. I saw him against Dickinson this year, and that's real speed now. I'm just here to tell you that his times are legit. His brother was a pretty good running back coming out of Klein Forest, went to TCU, then he transferred to New Mexico, I believe. But Jelani is signed with LSU. He's small now. I mean, we're talking 5'8.5", 160-ish, 165. But for anybody that says he's too small, Silas Bolden's about to come into Austin this summer with a jet pack and a chip on his shoulder. So we'll see if Jelani Watkins has that same type of chip on his shoulder for people saying you're too small.
Yeah, talk about speed. LSU loading up with Caden Durham and Jelani Watkins. That'll be a lot of fun for anybody but opposing defenses to watch in the SEC.
We are going to end with this question from Gamaro Sanchez. And he says, how do y'all anticipate that Malik Murphy will do at Duke this year?
Well, go ahead,
Jerry.
Well, he's not as good as Riley Leonard, not even close. The quarterback that's transferred to Notre Dame. Riley Leonard's a legitimate NFL quarterback. I think Malik's got to stay healthy, first of all. He's struggled with that. And I think he's going to be forced to play on the move at Duke. And that's going to really press him. I think he's going to make throws. It's going to be impressive throws at times, but I think his play in the pocket and on the move is going to determine his level of success, because he's not playing with the same offensive line talent.
That was exactly where I was going. Can Duke field the line in front of him to protect him and keep him inside the pocket? That's my biggest question mark right now. I mean, you saw the success that Riley Leonard had as a result of using his legs at Duke. I don't think you'll see that similarly with Malik Murphy. So I'm hopeful that they'll be able to field the line that'll give him time and protection.
And it's a living rent-free. Yeah, when Leonard went down last year, Duke had a freshman quarterback. So there is competition. That's the thing. Anywhere you go in Power 5, there's going to be competition. So, but one thing I'll say is for Malik is at least he got a couple of games of experience last year to help him in a competition. Otherwise, he'd have transferred into a situation where he had no experience, and the other guy actually had to play because Riley Leonard got hurt.
Yeah.
Hey, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. Anything that y'all are working on, maybe going out on the road, anything like that people need to be aware of to go check out later at ontexasfootball.com?
Yeah, I've got a fun little rabbit hole that I dove into last night about the first round picks. With Texas now being mocked to have 3 guys in the first round, I went through every Power 5 school, and the last time that they did that, Texas hasn't done it since 1980, so it could be a pretty special 2024 NFL draft for the Longhorns. I'll have that up here in the next couple hours, so be looking forward to that. I'll toss out a tweet and all the updates and stuff, but it was a fun deep dive.
Yeah, and then obviously more visit news breaks every day. That official visitors list will triple in size as we get closer to June, but we'll update all that today as well. And I'm quite sure there'll be more visit news break. I don't know if Kenny Baker's done offering defensive linemen, but if you're in Florida and you get a DM, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we want to thank Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm, along with Manscaped, for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. Great conversation, great questions today. Head on over to ontexasfootball.com for the news, like the guy said, plus to dive in more of that conversation. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime and every time we post a video or go live. And for CJ Vogel and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.